Hi, this is Eduardo Sanchez. In this screencast, I will show you a really cool site that brings together two things that I really love, Raspberry Pi and Scratch. Before I do that though, I want to give you a quick explanation of what these two things are. Scratch is a visual programming language designed to teach people how to program. Everything works through a web browser, so anyone who has a desktop computer and can get online can start to program. This demo video shows you how to snap blocks together to create programs. These programs can be games, simulations, movies, jokes, or just about anything you can imagine. You can also take a look at programs that others have made. Everything is open source, so you can see how others got their programs to work. Now let's talk about the Raspberry Pi. The Raspberry Pi is a $35 computer. It's really cool because it's tiny enough to fit in an Altoids tin. This little computer has a lot going for it. It can serve as the platform for a lot of nerdy projects. Okay, now that we know about Scratch and the Raspberry Pi, let's take a look at this site that I'm recommending. Remember how I said earlier that anyone with a desktop computer and a connection to the internet could get started with Scratch? Well, there is also a standalone version of Scratch that does not require an internet connection. This is good for kids whose families can't afford a web connection, or anyone who is off the grid. This site has instructions for getting Scratch up and running on the Raspberry Pi. Spoiler alert, there's an icon on the Raspberry Pi desktop that goes straight to the Scratch app. After you learn how to get started with Scratch, you can take a look at some of the more in-depth Scratch and Raspberry Pi projects like Robot Antenna, where you learn how to use Scratch to program the general purpose input-output or GPIO pins on the Raspberry Pi. Or Sweet Shop Reaction Game, where you learn how to use Scratch to detect when a button is pressed on the Raspberry Pi. All of these projects are the jumping off point for people to learn how to program and learn how to make Scratch and their Raspberry Pi interact with the real world. After you finish these projects, you'll be ready to start your own Cyberdyne Industries. That could never end badly. I hope you enjoyed this video about Scratch and Raspberry Pi. Goodbye.